Hello, East Hampton Town Planning Board. You are live and being recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the East Hampton Town Planning Board meeting of February 8th, 2023. As most of you probably know, we had an afternoon session from 3 to 5:30. We will now have our evening session, which will go as long as it needs to go. I am filling in here for Sam Kramer, who had a medical emergency. He is zooming in and will be following along with the conversation. Thankfully, he set forth a procedure that I'm able to follow, which consists of 3-minute comments for everybody here in public. We have a sign-up sheet that hopefully you saw on the way in. If you didn't get a chance, feel free to sign up. We're going to have 3-minute in-person comments first, and then we'll go to any phone callers who are on the line in the order in which they were received. If anybody feels the need to have longer comments, Chairman Kramer set aside 5-minute intervals after the 3-minute comments are finished. So if you didn't know all that and you happen to sign up for 3 minutes but think you need a little more time, please just let me skip your name and wait till the end so that we can make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be heard under the rules that we have. With that, we will go to the, do you have the sheet? We will go to the first speaker in just a moment. Thank you very much. First speaker, Bruce Solomon, I believe. And please, everybody state and spell your name for the record. I won't remind you each time, but please do it. Or I'll have to remind you. I'll give everybody a 30-second warning as well, so you have an idea when your time is ending.
Okay. Ready? Okay. My name is Bruce Solomon. Good evening, Chairman Kramer. Wishing you the best.
Can you spell that for us, please?
That is B-R-U-C-E-W. Solomon, S-O-L-O-M-O-N. Thanks. I am a member of the Wainscott CAC, in addition to a member of the Wainscott Tree Society and the Wainscott Heritage Project. I am here as a private citizen this evening. I reside on Hedges Lane, a private road bordering the entire eastern boundary of the proposed commercial development. There are presently 15 households on this street. A few of my neighbors have lived on the street for over 50 years. It's a quaint little street with relatively modest homes, until recently with the addition of 2 extra large developer spec houses. There are no overhead street lights, and we like it like that. Having been welcomed to the neighborhood 15 years ago, I have found my neighbors to be very kind, courteous, and respectful. We help one another, from loaning an electric lawnmower to picking up items at the grocery store for a senior. We pride ourselves on being good neighbors and share in the pain from the constant bombardment by helicopters that loom overhead while ascending and descending from the airport. My neighbors are productive members of this community. Some own small businesses here on the East End. Their children attend our local schools. They are retirees as well as proprietors of bakery and pizza businesses, landscapers, mechanics, masons, bankers, former social workers, artists, and school teachers. These are the people who make up the backbone of this community, and ones that I love being around and enjoy sharing my time with. We're very concerned about the huge implications a commercial development of this magnitude will have on our quality of life, as well as the surrounding neighborhoods that share their boundaries with the proposed development. We understand that as homeowners, the applicant is entitled to utilize his land for the highest and best use. However, we also recognize there is what's called responsible development. That can remain consistent and pay homage to this community's rural in-field character. The application requesting to subdivide 6 lots into 51-acre lots is an unreasonable alternative given that the applicant is keenly aware of the guidelines set by the East Hampton Town's Comprehensive Plan and the newly adopted Wainscott Hamlet Plan. Both provide a clear and precise roadmap for development in Wainscott, as well as other hamlets in East Hampton.
30 seconds.
At this time, we request that the Planning Board not approve the application as is. We have always believed that this plan does not provide adequate consideration for the residents of Hedges Lane nor the surrounding neighborhoods. The traffic congestion, water quality issues, sewage treatment, disposal in the aquifer, decades-long noise and impacts from construction, abundance of trash and debris ending up on our roadways, wildlife eradication, and possible increase in crime due to warehouses and other facilities are just a few of our concerns. Clearly, the greatest threats by development of this size are to the residents of Hedges Lane, and not to mention all those that reside, work, own businesses, and travel throughout the hamlet, heading east to Montauk and destinations west and beyond. Thank you for your consideration and for making the appropriate decision as it relates to this application. And just to be real clear, this is inviting the fox into the hen house. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I also want to remind everybody, I said it several times in the afternoon session, we have extended the public hearing, or the written public comments until March 13th. So anybody who feels like they have more to say, or even if you just, it would be a good idea for you to submit written comments, even if you feel like you've already said it here tonight. Written comments will be considered in full, just as the verbal comments here tonight. Next speaker is Marion Lindberg.
Good evening. My name is Marion Lindberg. New York's Climate Action Council scoping plan, adopted 7 weeks ago after years of study, asks local governments to reduce reliance on vehicles and make land use decisions that increase carbon sequestration and decrease fossil fuel emissions. The DEIS has little to say about reducing emissions because there is little it can say. The construction and operation of the proposed commercial center are fundamentally at odds with our state's climate policies. In contrast to the 2009 document that the DEIS cites in its 2.5 pages on climate change, the 2022 Climate Action Plan sets forth New York's current and future policies to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. The Planning Board must thoroughly consider the state climate plan before the DEIS is finalized. For example, if the asserted benefit of the center is to increase economic activity associated with more construction of second homes and expansion of businesses serving visitors, with associated increases in car and truck use, energy consumption, and vegetation clearing, the climate plan says that is no benefit. Unchecked growth, sprawl, and vehicular use are problems to be reined in, not benefits. The climate plan also requires you to consider another alternative, using the 70 acres for reforestation. The state's goal is 29 million new seedlings a year to absorb carbon, and towns are requested to review marginal lands for suitable sites. East Hampton asked us in Wainscott to bear the risks of the offshore wind cable. How about using Wainscott land for a less risky climate action, a reforestation project that would provide jobs and educational opportunities while modeling positive climate action? Outside funding would likely be available. Another omission in the DEIS is the lack of consideration of climate impacts on depth to groundwater. Coastal water tables rise as groundwater levels are pushed up by landward intrusions of seawater due to sea level rise. The sand mine already has a high water table, and the depth to groundwater will only get more shallow as seas continue to rise.
30 seconds.
Even a 4-foot separation for the septic galleys is therefore problematic so close to Georgica Pond. In sum, the DEIS does not take climate change seriously, but the Planning Board must. You must take another look at the application, especially its articulation of supposed benefits, in light of today's science and today's statewide climate policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Barbara Layton.
Yes, would you mind if I switch to the 5-minute slot, please?
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Cynthia Del Mastro.
Yes. Hello, my name is Cynthia Del Mastro, and I live at DEL, Cynthia, CYNTHIA, Del Mastro, Delmastro, and I live in Wainscott, for over 40 years, that is. And I've always loved living here. I mean, this, from the moment my husband and I arrived there, we fell in love with it. We love everything about it, the one-room schoolhouse, the Wainscott Chapel, the community of people that work so hard at being together and caring about each other. I'm speaking from a more personal perspective because everybody articulated beautifully with the statistics of the dangers that could be involved. We just take so much pride. We take pride in everything. The buying vegetables from the local people, and all of that is just so wonderful. And in particular, the character of the community. A 50-unit commercial center just doesn't fit in with the character of a small hamlet. My property in particular butts up to the west of the proposed center. And I can't even imagine what it would be like living there, with 50 units being developed, with all of the noise and the fears that come with that type of thing. And most of us have moved out here. I mean, my husband and I took decided a long time ago that this was going to be our primary residence, and gave up Manhattan and gave up that because, and I've been here for a long time. My husband, I might as well bring this even though I wasn't planning on saying this just yet. My husband Rick, and Sam, I hope he's doing okay, knew him well, was on the WCAC board for over 35 years. He was a tremendous believer and comes from a long line in his family of giving back and to the community, and he did. And he loved it, and he loved everything about it. In fact, he was on 2 different boards. He was on many different boards, but kept 2 of them as he got older. One was the WCAC, and the other was an autism center that he founded. So there's a lot of heart that goes into this. There's a lot of fear on my part of what this would be like, because my children and my grandchildren want that house there. They want to stay there. They want to live there. And I can't even imagine what that would be like. It's certainly not going to be like the feeling I got when I first stepped into this town and I smelled the air that smelled differently than anything I had experienced. And I lived on Long Island. There's just too much at stake. There really is too much at stake. And I really hope that for an amicable revision of something, I realize something has to be there, but a 50-unit commercial industrial lot just does not fit in, not only with the hamlet of Wainscott, it doesn't really fit in with the Hamptons. I really feel like this could be the demise of the Hamptons as we know it and of our town, because who wants to travel into a place that has lost all its charm and character? And this might be the very thing to take it down. So I appreciate your listening. I hope you were able to hear what I said, and it comes from the heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker, Abigail Fleming.
Doing it by memory, so I hope I'm... Abigail Fleming, Abigail, Fleming, Fleming. Myself and my late husband, Bill, bought the piece of property off of Sayers Path 30-some years ago. We built our house 20-some years ago. I'm still living in the house. Our daughter went to the one-room schoolhouse. I'm currently a teacher at the Wainscott School, and I'm involved in a few different committees, all regarding Wainscott. So last autumn, I was driving from East Hampton to Wainscott to go home, and as I approached close to Georgia Capon on my left, Sandpit on my right, a blue heron, a magnificent blue heron, flew from Georgia Capon over the highway to the area around the sand pit. Fortunately, we all slowed down so we could make it because it wasn't that high off the ground. And I thought to myself, where's another place on Montauk Highway where you would see a blue heron fly over the highway? So I'm a walker. I have a dog, so I walk no matter what the weather is. And my walk seems to be down Wainscott, Main Street, go through the cemetery, around the school. And I am humbled by the surroundings when I look at the sunset, when I smell the air, when I look at the pond, the ocean, when I look at the trees, the vegetation. And I realize that all of us are working in harmony, and I say all of us when I talk about trees and plants. And we're all part of this community that we call Wainscott. And I'm just a little tiny piece of it, just a little tiny piece, but I feel like I'm doing what I can do. And the rest of them, trees and the wildlife, are all doing what they can do. And as I walk under the sugar gum tree and those little prickly seed pods, which I always try to avoid, the tree's doing what it's doing because they're birds that eat those seeds. So we've all heard about biodiversity. It's, been used quite often now in the news, and that's the feeling I get. And so when I think of this massive industrial site that wants to be built, and I stress massive and I stress industrial, it makes me cringe because, as we all know, with biodiversity, a lot of things you can see, but there are many things you cannot see because they're all under my feet. I can't see them. So I have many concerns about this project, and I'll speak to it tonight, is that one is the groundwater, and the worry that the groundwater will be polluted and contaminated from the nitrogen, from the septic systems, and from the different businesses that are, will be allowed to be in that area.
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. And the other is the traffic. And as we all know, Wainscott is the back route. So that small little section where the blue heron flew over, with Georgia Capon there, that's one of the most volume traffic areas in the town of East Hampton. So if you wonder where that traffic's going to go, it's going to be funneled through Wainscott. So I oppose this industrial site. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, John Whelan.
Good evening. I am John Whelan, John Whelan. Good evening, board members and Chairman Kramer. I wish you well, all the best. I want to give a little background of my background because it has to do with my comments. I grew up here in East Hampton in Northwest Woods, and the year I was born in 1957 at Southampton Hospital, my father, who was a town attorney for over 2 decades and served as an attorney for your board for as many years, had just authored for that town board the zoning code for the town of East Hampton. And it was adopted actually as a template for small towns by the state attorney general. So I've been interested in zoning since I was a teenager and used to attend, I guess I was a zoning nerd. I would attend your meetings as in high school. I then went on to college and then went on and received a master's degree in architecture from Virginia Tech College of Architecture and Urban Studies. And from then, I've been in that field for the last 30 years. And I came back, and for 1 year, I worked for the planning department as a planner. And then I was nominated to the Suffolk County Planning Commission by Steve Malone, the county executive, and was pleased to serve on that for 2 years. And I take great pride in being able to convince the commission in a vote of 14-2 to deny the 555 application in Amagansett to change the zoning and develop that. And the East Hampton Town Board eventually, thank God, worked and was able to preserve that parcel. Since then, I have served on the zoning board of Appeals chairman for 7.5 years. And currently, I am serving on the last 2 years on the Sag Harbor East Hampton Citizens Advisory Committee and the East Hampton Arts Council. I'm not representing these committees. My comments are basically that this area does not require a natural resources special permit. This application, although the land, as we all know, and I listened to the whole afternoon session, is very fragile because of the proximity to Georgia Pond and because of the depth to groundwater. And there obviously is, I haven't heard any support for this application. The applicants certainly deserve or to do something with their property. And my goal is that there are opportunities here for the town of East Hampton. The applicants could do great things for the town, working with the planning department, working with your board, and working with the town board to completely rethink their application.
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. And to hopefully come back with something that is much more in keeping with the Hamlet study and the comprehensive plan. Something like perhaps 20 units, some affordable housing, perhaps parking that really works with the Hamlet study and the collaboration of the parking, and perhaps even a jitney hub in the back, and possibly allowance for a sewage treatment plant in the future when it's built out, and for possibly a Long Island Railroad stop. But I'm hoping that in the end of the day, this is not 2 years of 2, 3, 4 years of contentious litigation, but it becomes a wonderful model for the town of East Hampton, because there are great opportunities here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That is the last name we have on the list for 3-minute speakers. So at this time, is there anybody else who was not on the list who would like to speak for 3 minutes? And after that, we'll go back to Barbara Layton for the first 5-minute speaker.
I'm on the list. You don't even sitting up there. I signed up out there.
Oh,
There she is. And he's on, right?
okay, great. So we will go to, at this point, we will go to Barbara Layton for the first 5-minute speaker.
We also have one caller on the line.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you, LTV. As I said when we started, we'll do the callers before the 5-minute speakers. I apologize, Ms. Layton. So LTV, please let in the first caller.
We're going right now. Hello, caller ending 5057. You are on the air.
Thank you very much. Good evening to the members of the East Hampton Town Planning Board. My name is Susan McGraw-Keeber. That's S-U-S-A-N, capital M-C, capital G-R-A-W dash Keeber, K-E-B-E-R. As concerned residents of the town of East Hampton for over 40 years, I write to let you know that I, along with my husband, Paul Keeber, are opposed to the Wainscott Commercial Center. My daily work serves to preserve and protect our environment. We know that our environment will be compromised if this vast plan is implemented. We believe the applicant has understated the potential adverse impacts across several of the areas scoped in the draft environmental impact statement, the DEIS, water quality being among them. Day in and day out, the town and residents of Wainscott work to protect Georgia Capon's waters. An annual letting of the pond is done to create healthy water, and when necessary, the pond is dredged. Dr. Christopher Gobler of Gobler Laboratory at Stony Brook University is enlisted to help maintain the health of the waters through sampling and testing. We feel that this Wainscott plan would run counter to the efforts invested over these many years should the applicant be approved to go forward. Though individual IA septic systems do reduce nitrogen in waste effluent, it is not clear that they will effectively treat other types of industrial waste, such as chemicals and solvents, or prevent further contamination of the land and water. In addition, as currently scoped by the applicant in the DEIS, many of the individual IA systems meet at most a minimal 2-foot separation to groundwater, as opposed to the recommendation for at least 4 feet of separation, something that would seem to create many risks, especially given the decades of sea level rise ahead. For a large commercial industrial complex of 50 lots, these units will not prevent harm to Georgia Pond as plumes move toward the water and the runoff from Route 27 continues to flow into the pond. Moreover, in the proposed subdivision plan, the applicant has rejected a better and more efficient waste management plan that would help to maintain cleaner waters. The discussion they provide in Section 5.4 of the DEIS around the sewage treatment plant alternative is inadequate. Their assertion that the alternative would create a greater adverse impact overall than their current plan to use IAs reads as more of a scare tactic than an objective analysis. The significant increase in traffic, likely comprised of larger trailer trucks, will be generated by the Wainscott Commercial Center development, on top of an already heavy stream of vehicles, including community workers' cars, ambulances, school buses, and residents on errands. This will be problematic all year round and profoundly adverse in the summer months when we are already on overload with seasonal swells of traffic tie-ups. The traffic-related increase of noise and air pollution, as well as the increased hazards to bicyclists and pedestrians from this project, will be a detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of our community. We simply cannot afford more vehicular traffic that this immense development will create. In all, we believe that the application and plan as presented in the DEIS does not adequately protect our drinking water or Georgica Pond, and we are certain the impact on traffic will be debilitating for our community. To preserve and protect our fragile coastal environment, we feel strongly that our established rules and regulations in place, the purposes and intent of our town zoning code, and the goals and objectives of the East Hampton Comprehensive
Please wrap it up.
Must be adhered to and followed in this matter. We have confidence in our town planning board to do so and to reach the appropriate determination. Please use your codified authority to reject the DEIS as well as the proposed subdivision plat and find a better alternative, because what we allow to happen today will forever impact our community and our already encumbered and fragile environment in a multitude of ways. Thank you very much for holding the meetings. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you. LTV, are there any other callers on the line?
One more caller, unmuting now.
And please state and spell your name for the
Good
record,
evening.
caller.
Yes, my name is Lou Sherwood, spelled Lewsherwood. I watched both the first session and this session, and I don't have a statement. I have a question. Obviously, you've heard a great deal of fact-based objections with respect to air pollution, water pollution, traffic impact, quality of life. Could you please share with us your criteria for evaluating the application?
Unfortunately, as I said for the introduction to this meeting in the afternoon session, this is not a question and answer session, so we can't get too much into the specifics. What I will say is this is all part of the SECRA and subdivision process, so we are following SECRA guidelines. The point of tonight's hearing is to hear from the public verbal comments. We will continue to receive written comments until March 13th. All comments received in any form in that time period will be addressed fully as part of the final environmental impact statement. So the criteria is elaborate and long, but simply put, it's SECRA and our town code.
I thank you for that response. Where could we access the criteria?
I suggest you call the planning department, but State Environmental Quality Review Act, if you Google it, there's a lot of information.
Oh, thank you very much.
And feel free to contact the planning department as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. LTV, are there any other callers on the line?
There are no other callers on the line.
With that, I would like to say, to be fair to everybody, again, it's important to hear all comments. If anybody watching from home who wants to call in feels that they need more than 3 minutes, once we finish 5-minute in-person comments, we would welcome slightly longer calls as well, assuming everybody has the chance to be heard first. We'll make time for that. With that, Barbara Layton, next speaker.
Good evening, and thank you for your time and the work that you do. Speedy recovery, Mr. Kramer.
And please state and spell your name.
Yes, Barbara Layton, B-A-R-B-A-R-A-L-A-Y-T-O-N. I've been a resident of East Hampton for a little over 30 years, and I've had a business in East Hampton for 27 years.
So with that, before attending this meeting tonight, I knew there would be many substantive and informative comments from our residents, near and far, who deeply care about this beloved community. So I thought, so what can I offer into the conversation that could be meaningful and relevant? And embarrassed to say it, but last night, for the first time, I read through the brilliant and well-thought-out comprehensive plan for the town of East Hampton for the first time ever. And it was mind-blowing, totally mind-blowing. And with that, I realized the importance of creating a context for the conversation we're having tonight and remembering some of the many goals put forth in the beautifully thought-out vision statement of the comprehensive plan. There isn't enough time to go through all of them, and I urge everyone here tonight, if you haven't done so, please spend some time looking through this ingenious and inspiring document. A few of the goals of the comprehensive statement are as follows, and I wish I could go through all of them, but we'd be here for a couple of days. Maintain and restore, where necessary, East Hampton's rural and semi-rural character. Take forceful measures to protect and restore the environment, particularly groundwater, wetlands, dunes, biodiversity, ecosystems, air quality, the night sky, noise, excuse me, and energy consumption. Reduce the total build-out of the town to protect the natural and cultural features. Provide housing opportunities to help meet the needs of current year-round residents and employees. Encourage local businesses to serve the needs of the year-round population and reduce the environmental impacts of commercial and industrial uses. So far, we haven't seen any detailed economic model at this point for the proposed commercial center. I'd like to know what the benefits are, actually. Protect historic buildings, hamlets, landscapes, and scenic vistas from incompatible development. Develop road, wastewater treatments, water and power infrastructure consistent with the goals and vision already stated to ensure public health, safety, and environmental risks. A few other quotes from the plan include, the town treasures and is committed to sustaining the rich array of natural and cultural resources, authentic sense of place, rural character, and the people who make it unique. East Hampton is and will continue, and this is all the comprehensive plan, by the way. This isn't me ad-libbing and making it up. East Hampton is and will continue to be, quote, a green community, a leader in protecting the environment, saving energy, and preserving open space. Future development should be harmonious with the existing character of the community and should continue to be a wonderful place to live, work, raise a family, enjoy life, and connect with the natural environment. So I offer and remind everyone in this conversation to hold this vision that is just as relevant today as it was when first initiated. And this must be the context from which decisions are made moving forward. It's been said, and many of you know, quote, people perish from lack of vision. And I don't think there is any lack of vision in this room tonight. And with all due respect and gratitude to all the members of this board, I believe the will of the people has spoken, both this afternoon and this evening. And I believe it is your duty and responsibility to honor that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as I mentioned in your afternoon session, please, if you could hold your applause. We really want to hear your comments tonight and focus on those. Julia Murphy, next speaker.
Hi, my name is Julia Murphy, Julia Murphy, And I'm not really prepared to speak. I'm so moved by everything that I've heard. And, you know, especially thank you all for the work that you guys are doing. I've lived on the pond since 1965. My mother traded her engagement ring for the house. So I've been there since I was 5. And, you know, when I think back on the land and what it was like when I was a child, I mean, it was, you know, there were tortoises and butterflies, and the pond froze every winter. You know, when it snowed, it stayed white. And, you know, now the pond is in an ecological crisis, as we all know. And, you know, I live on that pond, and, you know, many of us are putting in nitrogen, reducing septic systems, and, you know, trying to, you know, do our best. So I don't know too much about this development, but from what little I know and I've heard tonight, I just can't see the good in it. I mean, it just seems clear to me that it's going to impact things in a really negative way. And I know it's just been pointed out that you guys aren't answering questions, but I mean, I would ask, like, what good is it? I mean, other than just like more, you know, business and more stuff going on, I can't see how it's really going to help anything that, you know, the people who live here really are valuing. So I don't want to take up any time. I'm sure you guys have heard tons of great stuff, and the comments tonight have been fantastic. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Pedro Curry.
Good evening. I'll be reading my remarks. My name is Pedro Cury, Pedrocury. I've been a resident of Wainscott for about 6 years. Well, I'm opposed to this development as proposed by the applicant. The proposed subdivision is in direct conflict with the Wainscott Hamlet study. If approved, it will render all current and future Hamlet studies as worthless. The town's commitment to its residents' vision is permanently impacted. Is the planning board satisfied with this outcome? There is no clear economic reasoning for the additional commercial industrial space proposed. There is no clear analysis of the extent of this need, and no clear discussion on the most suitable locations and most appropriate uses. As an obvious example of this, there are currently 30 lots along Industrial Road that are zoned for commercial industrial use, of which 15 are vacant, totaling approximately 25 acres, or about 50% of the total available. Why is there a need to add 50 lots in the pit on top of this? The pit is essentially landlocked. To the west is a high-density residential area with narrow streets and cul-de-sacs. To the east, mainly forest and no roads. To the north, the airport and train tracks. To the south is the Wainscott Business District. How can this proposed dense subdivision succeed with so many choke points surrounding it? The pit has no frontage to the Montauk Highway. In any and all scenarios, the competing traffic patterns at the Montauk Highway are daunting. Are there any precedents in our town for such intense zoning usage with so little frontage to a major road, while directly competing with already existing heavy traffic? Proposed traffic solutions such as new entry and exit points at Wainscott Northwest Road and Hedges Lane, with a convoluted system of prohibited left and right turns, seem largely speculative, putting the entire surroundings in jeopardy. Are there precedents for such high-risk decision-making in traffic patterns in our town? When looked at holistically, a major redesign of the Wainscott Business District is a prerequisite to any new developments at the pit. Why should the planning board approve the applicant's proposal without any guarantees of this prerequisite being met? The depressed grade level of the pit, with depth to the water table lower than 10 feet, and its close proximity to the Georgica Pond, are massive environmental hazards. Are there precedents in our town's history for such an impactful development in such a fragile environment? Is the planning board confident enough today to take on this risk for the foreseeable future? With stakes so high for the environment, the vehicle traffic, the residents' well-being, and our town's identity, why should the planning board approve such an application and introduce a permanent state of uncertainty in our town? The applicant proposes risk mitigating alternatives, such as exclusive 5-year options for the town to purchase some of the lots. Why should the planning board accept these terms when all it accomplishes is to restrict the town's ability to decide and coerce the town into action? To conclude my remarks today, I strongly encourage the planning board to not approve this application, and I urge the town to work with the applicant for an outright purchase of the pit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the room who hasn't had a chance to speak yet and would like to speak? And planning department staff, if there's any more sign-up sheets that I don't have, please bring them to the room. I see one hand in the audience.
May I speak?
Yes, yep, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Stephen, S-T-E-V-E-N, Caputo, C-A-P-U-T-O. I'm a long time resident of East Hampton since 1965, Wainscott since 1981. I live on Hedges Lane, and I am definitely opposed to what they're planning to do with what we call the pit. And I really think that it should be developed for senior citizens. I'm 83, and I think I want to be around even longer, and people are living longer, and they need a place to live. I'm fortunate to have my own home, and I will probably stay there until I leave. But there are plenty of people in their 70s who can't afford to keep their own home anymore. And if we could develop that for seniors, because there are more and more seniors every year, we're living longer. Look at me. I don't look like I'm ready to go anywhere. So how about thinking of us? And I don't know all the technical things about the pit. I know that about 10 or 12 years ago, they were going to put a cement plant right next to Hedges Lane. I was the one with the big mouth then. I was younger then, and I stopped him. But now I can't stop what he's doing, but I hope that you guys will. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who hasn't had a chance to speak, who would like to speak? It's a little bit hard to see with the lights, so if I'm missing you, just stand up or say something, but it appears that nobody else would like to speak. LTV, is there anybody on the line who has not had a chance to speak who would like?
You have zero callers, thank you.
Okay, so we have one more name on the list, Deborah Foster. Deborah, you spoke twice in the earlier session, so your comments will be heard, but please keep them pointed and brief.
Of course. If I can. Thank you. So what can you guys do? As I've mentioned before, I served on the planning board for 15 years as chair, and we upzoned the whole town, and in reflect to that, we created a comprehensive plan and a land use plan. Then I was elected to the town board, and we did it again. So I'm reading to you from things that we did as a planning board that were required. And were we sued? Yes.
Respectfully, Ms. Foster, I want to keep the comments really about this application specifically, and this is your third time speaking, so we're not cutting you short.
I'm reading what we did with that zone, because you're not addressing the special permits. I should be able to say what I want to say, here with the fractured pelvis. Okay. They're coming in as a planned industrial park. And the planning board must determine, this is under special permit, that the adopted planned industrial park conforms with the comprehensive plan and with the Wainscott Hamlet plan. That is not in what you have now. You have to put that in part of your EIS, maybe as a draft, but it's got to be covered. That's according to law. And we did that, and it was fine. Okay. Oh, you also need to find, according to the comprehensive plan, that this development will not create negative environmental impacts on and off-site. So that's a tough challenge. I mean, this predated zoning, so it didn't get up zoning because it was already partially developed. So if we wanted to make it a residential zone, it would be almost a taking of the owner's property. So this is going to be tough for you guys. The planning board's obligation to impose conditions which it deemed necessary to minimize or avoid completely all adverse environmental impacts extends to the entire project. The applicant insists that he's just doing a subdivision. But according to the comprehensive plan and the special permit, you've got to take a look at the uses that could be on that subdivision. So how do you do that? Because this is where the special permit comes in. You could take care of this by simply going through the commercial industrial uses and just ask the hazmat team, will any of these uses have something like we mentioned dry cleaning before?
1:45 before a hard stop.
I have to stop now?
No, 1:45 left.
Okay. It'll be hard. It's hard for me to keep stopping. You're right. The planning board is legally obligated to assess the environmental impact of the project as a whole. You're looking at half of it now, just the subdivision. But again, the way you could meet the concerns is take out some of the uses, because you certainly have them identified, and that's still, I did that. And it still leaves him over 30 uses. So you're not taking away his use of his property. Non-compliance in consideration of a project into smaller parts, there's your subdivision, would provide a clear loophole in SECRA. SECRA doesn't want you to do that. It would be non-compliance if you don't put in the recommendations in the zoning code in that zone and the comprehensive plan. Those words that we heard beautifully before.
30 seconds.
The zoning board, the planning board needs to look at those uses. You can't leave them behind. They have a cumulative impact. You can take some of them out, according to SECRA and the special permit, and you should. There, I'm out early.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak? I don't see any hands. Okay, so with that, I want to say one more time, you probably are tired of hearing it, but it's important. Your comments are important. Everything that has been said tonight will be analyzed, and the question will be answered. I don't want anybody to think that questions won't be answered. They'll just be answered as part of the SECRA process, and we're going to wait to analyze all the comments until we received all written comments, again, which you can submit until March 13th. So I would encourage everybody here, whether you've spoken tonight or not, to submit written comments that either repeat what you've already said or anything you think of between now and then. Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, this is not, it's a public process. So when we take this draft environmental impact statement, we're listening to everything that's being said now. Our own consultants will contribute, and we will analyze all that, and the planning board will have a final environmental impact statement document that will be public. None of it is secret. And based on that, the process will go forward how it goes forward. So don't hesitate to submit more comments if you think of something else. With that, do I have a motion? Anybody want to make a motion to close? So
You need to make a motion.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion. We're going to make a motion to close the public hearing, but again, that's only for these verbal comments tonight. The written comments will be accepted till 4 p.m. March 13th. I'm correct in this, right, Nancy? So do I have a second?
There is one other participant in the conference.
Hey, sorry about that. The phone line was just being buggy on me for a second. I just had to reopen it. It's all good. No callers are on the line.
No callers? So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, with that, I want to thank you once again, and the meeting is adjourned.